Hey, what is up guys? This is Nishi from MST.TV back with another Market Watch episode. So today we're taking a look at a few odd techs for various different decks that are either starting to pop up here and there in the meta now, or that have the potential to be meta relevant in the future. The format that we're in is incredibly diverse. It really does feel like anything can top, but with that there's a lot of room for people to experiment and try out different strategies and ultimately see success. With all of that room for new things, we were of course bound to see price spikes and buyouts all over the market as people continue to innovate in this format and prepare for the next several as well. Let's get started. So the first card that we're taking a look at here is Xcode Talker. This is actually a card that I wanted to talk about last week but didn't have a chance to, so we're taking a look at it here now instead. This is a Link 3 monster that can only be made with Cyberse monsters with two somewhat useful effects. First off, it blocks off an opponent's main monster zone if there are cards in the extra monster zones, so may be useful for positioning and whatnot. Its other effect prevents monsters that it points to from being destroyed by card effects, making it really difficult for your opponent to break your extra link. So recently we have actually seen some success from Code Talkers here in the TCG, which before this only seemed like a viable deck over in the OCG. However, it is really cool that we're starting to see some competitive success from it here as well. It's also worth noting that the Adignister deck is getting its new Link 1 monster in Lightning Overdrive, and that will definitely be a big boost for the deck that will hopefully allow it to be a little bit more competitive than it has been so far. Xcode Talker is a card that only has one ultra rare printing coming out back in Extreme Force, so it's one of the notable exclusions from being reprinted in the Megatins the last couple of years. We've seen some people try to buy out this card multiple times in the past simply because of that lack of a reprint, but we've never really seen anything stick until now. It has historically been a $2 to $3 card, but for now we're seeing the card's price stick at around the $10 mark. It's only a matter of time before we do see the card reprinted, but if the Code Talker and Adignister decks do become more popular within the next couple of months, especially if we receive some banlist hits to things like Dragon Link or Shaddoll Invoked, and one of these decks becomes meta relevant, then expect this card to get a little bit more expensive, maybe back up to around $15 to $20 a piece before it cools back down. Next up, we have another Cyberse monster to talk about. We have Nightmare Corruptor Ibli. So this is a card that is also useful in that Code Talker deck that we just talked about, being one of the main starters for you to use. It's really important for you to have access to this card early in the deck so that you can give it to your opponent and leave it on their side of the field. This card makes it so that your opponent cannot hit you with Nibiru, Cyphering Gear Gamma, or Infinite Impermanence. Three really big disruptive hand traps that are definitely meta relevant and helps to ensure that you're actually able to set up an extra link. Of course, with Nightmare Mermaid probably being banned forever, we typically see people maxing out on this card and running 3 copies in the main deck. This card has 2 printings available, the original secret rares from Flames of Destruction, which are about $12 a piece, and the ultra rare reprints from that year's Megatins, which are $6 to $7 a piece. This is a card that has a history of spiking in price, as secret rare Iblis used to be at $40 or something crazy like that, and the card does only have the 2 printings available. I think that a lot of people are used to just owning the 1 copy of the card, so if it's now being played at 3, that's probably leading to a lot of people scrambling to pick up the other 2 copies of this card and eating the supply on the market fairly quickly. Obviously right now, it's not seeing too much mainstream usage with Code Talkers, just recently taking those couple of small tops, but if it does start to see more play, then definitely expect it to continue to trend upwards in price. If you're looking to play the deck, I would definitely recommend picking this card up fairly soon before it continues to spike any further. So I think that last week or the week before we took a look at number 97 Draglubion as a monster that was sometimes played in the extra deck for Ogdo Addicts, which helped to facilitate OTKs. Well, the other piece of that extra deck combo is number 100 Numeron Dragon, the card that you summon off of Draglubion, which gains 1000 attack points times the number of combined ranks on the field. This means that with Draglubion, its attack power is easily boosted up to 9000, which means that you can punch through a monster that you've forced down to 0 using the effective Reptilian Echidna. So like we said before, I don't think that this is the main, most consistent way to play Ogdo Addicts, and it does take up a couple of extra deck spaces. However, it's definitely a really cool option to fit in if you have the space. Now this card does have 2 printings available. It was originally a secret rare from Dragons of Legend 3, though the originals are now up to $25 a piece. It was reprinted in the Dragons of Legend Complete series, which originally brought all the prices quite low, but we're now seeing the colored ultra rare reprints anywhere from $10 to $13 each. Now, even though the card does have multiple printings available, it is still fairly hard to find, as the Dragons of Legend Complete series wasn't exactly the most desirable product to go ahead and open. I think that this card is likely to stay at its current market price for the next little while, maybe dip down a tiny bit in the next couple of weeks, just because it is still a number monster and it's collectible and difficult to find until this card eventually gets some sort of additional reprint. So this one feels like a really random one, but next up we have Masked Chameleon. So this card is a level 4 reptile tuner monster, and I believe it is just typically played as a one-of in the Ogdoadic deck. The idea here is that you can summon this card off of Water Lily, and then you can use this card and another level 4 monster to go into a level 8 synchro, which can help to facilitate making Bish Balkan. Now alternatively, if you do normal summon this card, you can special summon back a Nunu from your graveyard and then go into a level 8 synchro monster. So maybe it's not the absolute worst brick for you to have to run in your main deck, since it could be useful in like some sort of top deck situation. I think that this card is pretty cool. I actually do have a few copies myself that I bought from way back when Gokis first came out because I thought they might be useful there, so I guess it all kind of worked out in the end. Masked Chameleon does just have 2 ultra rare printings out, each of them being around $8 to $9 at the moment. Admittedly, this is a fair amount to be paying for a one-of brick in your main deck, but do keep in mind that the last time that this card was reprinted was way back in 2014, so it is going to be a bit difficult to find someone that just has this card sitting in their binder. Overall, I would definitely say that this is the type of card that you should be looking to offload if you can while it's at its hyped up price, and personally, even if you want to use it in your own deck, I wouldn't be looking to pay more than $5 for a copy of this card. One last card here that I believe is related to the Ogdoadics as well, we have Darkening Diabolos, Lord of the Lair. So this card does actually have some interesting synergy with the Ogdoadic archetype. It's incredibly easy to bring out since a lot of the Ogdoadic monsters have effects that involve tributing Ogdoadic monsters on the field. Several of the Ogdoadics are also darks, which means that they can be tributed by Diabolos to get rid of a card from your opponent's hand. And then lastly, it's also a level 8 monster, so you can use it to help go into Bish Balkan or a rank 8 Xyz monster. Definitely a really cool tech, though it's probably something that you're only going to want to run 1 or 2 copies of. However, Diabolos has also gradually been trending upwards in price over the last couple of months, hitting a high of $10 recently before now settling back down to the $8 mark. Believe it or not, the Layer of Darkness structure deck is actually a full 3 years old, and this card still just has the 1 printing, so I would hope that it would be reprinted soon. However, that reprint coming soon isn't something that we can count on, so if you're wanting to tech this card into your Ogdoadic deck, it might just be one of those types of cards that you have to pay up for. Alright, next up, let's take a look at a card that spiked in price that I personally am not really that fond of. We have Arch Nemesis Ishatos. Now this is a level 11 dragon monster that you summon by banishing 3 monsters with different types from your graveyard. Then you declare 1 monster type that is on the field and destroy all monsters of that type, as well as prevent both players from summoning monsters of that type until the end of the next turn, so basically stunning your opponent out for their turn. This is a card that was recommended by the Kali effect as a card that you should buy before it skyrockets in price, back when it was only around $5 or so, and the card did indeed shoot up pretty shortly after to around $17 before now settling back down at its current price of $8 each. I think that Ishatos is a cool card in theory, and it does have a lot of potential, but there are definitely some notable problems with it. Firstly, outside of Melody of Awakening Dragon, it's a card that you can't really search out, so you're counting on hard drawing into it, which is never a guarantee. Secondly, the fact that it's probably going to be reprinted in the 2021 Megatins means that its price will inevitably come back down when the tins come out. If it hasn't seen play so far, I think it's unlikely to see enough play within the next few months to cause its price to go up any higher. So there is going to be a dip that's going to provide a better price to buy in at. And finally, the card is only really useful if you're going second. If you're going first, they probably have a board that's set up to stop you from playing the game, and getting 3 monsters with different types into your own graveyard so that you can nuke your opponent's board is gonna be harder than you think, so maybe this card is a little bit difficult to resolve. Overall, I would say that this card is cool. It does have a lot of potential application within the meta, but if you do decide to invest in a few copies of this card, definitely wait until after the Megatins have dropped at the very least, so that you can buy in at a more reasonable price. Alright, so of course these two are cards that we've talked about in the past, but I wanted to loop back to them because they have seen another considerable bump up in price. So Scrapyard and Scrap Chimera are 2 pieces of the Scrap engine once Scrap Raptor comes out in Lightning Overdrive. Scrapyard helps to improve the consistency of the engine, basically allowing you to play 6 copies of Raptor, and Chimera is the target that you search off of Raptor that helps to facilitate the making of Scrap Wyvern. Nothing has really changed in that regard, except for the fact that apparently Scrap Raptor was leaked as a common in the upcoming set, which is crazy because I think a lot of people were expecting it to be a secret rare given how highly anticipated it was. Now, because Scrap Raptor is a common, people scrambled to pick up other pieces of the engine, in this case Scrapyard and Chimera, which resulted in some pretty big price jumps. So before we saw each of these cards at around $15 to $20, but now we're seeing Scrapyard at $40 and Scrap Chimera at $35 on TCG Player, which is double what I thought was already a pretty high market price. I do think that for now, all that we can do is hope for the cards to be reprinted. I think that an OTS tournament pack as a common or super rare is the most likely place for us to see them in the foreseeable future, unless we do get something like a Maximum Gold 2 confirmed for later on in the year. If you're still holding on to these cards for whatever reason, definitely consider offloading them at this hyped up price while everyone is still super excited to see the new Scrap engine. Okay guys, one last card I want to talk about here. It is Ally of Justice Cycle Reader. So here I'm actually bringing this card up as something that I think you guys should be looking to pick up now, because I do believe that once Lightning Overdrive is officially released here in the TCG, this is a card that is going to shoot back up in price. We saw this card cited quite a bit before when Drytrons were one of the best decks of the format, but obviously with hits to Union Carrier and Benton, Drytrons have mostly fallen off. They still take the occasional top here or there, but they aren't nearly as consistently performing as they were before. However, with Fafnir and Diviner of Heralds coming in Lightning Overdrive, I do believe that Drytrons will once again be a meta-relevant deck, and people are going to be looking to add Cycle Reader back into their side decks for that matchup. The card is basically a double DD Crow, banishing 2 of your opponent's light monsters from their graveyard, and the card has proven in the past just how effective it can be in this matchup. Right now, super rare Cycle Readers are only $4, but a few months ago, you were seeing them up at $8 to $10 a piece. I'm not saying that you should go ahead and invest in this card overly aggressively, since obviously there is a chance that we could see the card reprinted in an OTS tournament pack or some sort of side set, but if you're looking for a card that you can pick up a few extra copies of early on so that you can double up on it in a month or two, or you're just looking for a side deck card to use next format to grab while it's cheap, definitely take a look at picking up Ally of Justice Cycle Reader. Alright guys, that is it for today's episode. The meta that we're in is really diverse and we're seeing success from a lot of different decks, and with Lightning Overdrive, the next Duelist pack, and King's Court all not too far away, we're bound to see even more changes coming up. You guys will definitely want to be up to date as much as possible with all of the different products as well as all the changes on the market so that you guys know what cards you should be looking to own ahead of time before they spike up in price. Anyways guys, if you did enjoy today's Market Watch, please make sure that you hit that thumbs up button for me and let me know. Also make sure you leave a comment in the comment section down below. Let me know what other cards are trending on the market or what you think about the cards that we talked about in today's video. Also, if you haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button to get all of the latest and greatest content from both Tombox and myself here on the channel. And until next time guys, don't forget to hold on to your MST.TV.